Hey, Baruch Levi B here from Soul Centered. I'm here today to talk to you about how to support your friend in grief. I call it holding the space, and let me tell you why. Now, I've done about 500 funerals. I was an officiating rabbi for 15, 20 years in various congregational settings, Jewish and Christian funerals, secular funerals. And during that time, again, during maybe 500 funerals or so, I saw best practice, I saw worst practice. I want to share with you best practice because when our loved one loses a loved one, maybe you didn't even know their parent or their friend or whomever else, but they're your friend. We want to help. We need to help. It's part of our DNA. I'm a logotherapist, meaning-centered psychotherapist, based on the work of Dr. Viktor Frankl. And he says the ultimate expression of being human is self-transcendence. When we transcend ourselves, we touch upon the divine, spiritual, ultimate meaning. We know this when a friend is in need. There's a piece of us we want to transcend ourselves. So let me help you transcend yourself to respond to your friend. First, let's talk about what not to do, what not to say, because we are uncomfortable with death. And we're going to want to fill the void. I call it avoidance, a void dance, a dance around the void. There's a void that the death's darkness opens up within them, within us, and we're going to want to fill it and want to do the void dance. And so we'll start throwing things at the void, not realizing that that's what we're doing. One of the things we'll throw at the void are words. And you know you're throwing words into the void when it just feels like you can't handle the void, the darkness, and you just want to get rid of it. You want to help them. And so you'll start saying things that aren't helpful. And they might even be hurtful. I've heard some of the most hurtful things said to people in mourning. You're young, you'll marry again, or you still have time to have more kids, or you had your parent for X amount of years. They were 95. You should be grateful with the years you had, and not be so sad. When we start reacting, we do damage. That's not our job. Our job is to hold the space, to create a context for them to decide on where they're at, on what they're feeling, what they're not feeling, their time frame. But we can hold the space. One of the ways we do that, according to the Jewish tradition, and this is for everybody, is to mirror them, to match them. So if you go to a wake, if you go to a shiva, if you go to their house after their loss, you don't speak until spoken to. That's kind of the Jewish principle. You sit there in silence, and most of us aren't comfortable with the silence. So we just go to fill the void. The tradition says, match them, mirror them, have empathy, feel what they're needing. And if they speak to you about baseball, then talk about baseball or the weather or work or their loved one. Your job is to hold the space for them to share, to process, to feel whatever it is they need to feel. It's not about you. It's not about me. It's about them. Creating the context, holding the space through silence or through speech. If they want to talk about their loved one, I've seen this 1,000 times, and they start talking about it and you're not comfortable, you might divert the conversation to something trivial. You have to have the courage and the willingness to match them, to meet them, to respond to them in their hour of need by talking about their loved one. And trust me, more often than not, they want to talk about their loved one. They want to talk about the death. They don't want to go to the trivial. Even if they think they do, they don't. It's what they're thinking about. It's what they're feeling. They need a context to process it. Again, it's up to them. But if they go there, you have an obligation, if you want to support your friend, to hold that space. Not filling the void, not reacting, but responding. And here's a big way to respond. To anticipate their needs. Something that we all have done, and you hear it all the time, and it is stupid, I've done it too, is let me know if there's anything you need. Why is it stupid? Well, one way is they don't know what they need, right? If they're in death's darkness, grieving the loss of a loved one, they can barely function. Our job as friends, as family, as community, as strangers, is to anticipate their needs. Do they need pickup from carpool for their kids or food schedule, and I'll take care of the scheduling. I once walked into a Shiva home before the family got back. A guy I knew it was his best friend who lost his dad. He's a billionaire. He just a remarkably successful person. I walked in, he was vacuuming his friend's house before he got back. He could have outsourced it, and there would have been nothing wrong with that. He was anticipating his friend's need, and he wanted to fill that need, not just to outsource it to somebody else to do. Again, nothing wrong. It would have been generous just to think of that ahead of time. But the point is he was all in, anticipating his friend's need and showing up and being present. And that's the last thing. Anticipate their needs. Coordinate the reality for them so that they can have the context to do the work of grieving, and they don't have to deal with all the other unnecessary distractions. They'll get back to that eventually. But right now, they need to grieve, and you can help hold the space by anticipating their needs and showing up like that guy I told you about. Like what I call funeral friends, people who just jump on planes or get in cars to go to a friend's loved one's funeral. You may not, again, have known the person who died, but it's not about that. It's about your friend. It's about them in their hour of need. I know why we don't do this all the time. A, we're busy and we have complicated lives, and that has to be factored in. But all things equal, if you want to give your friend a gift, show up, embody. We live now in a Zoom culture post-COVID. So be it. That's a great bonus, but it's only a bonus. It doesn't take the place of showing up if at all possible. And if you can't show up, then call them, tell them, email them, let them know. There's a piece of us that feels, ashamed of those things. And so we resist making that call or sending the email, and then time gets away from us and it's just been too long and we're embarrassed. You don't need to be embarrassed. I've seen it 1,000 times. If you just reach out and you're honest and you don't make it about you, you make it about them, they will appreciate it. But there is no substitute for physically just being present. People remember that years, decades later, of those who showed up in their hour of need. Don't underestimate the power of your presence. Your friend doesn't need presents, presents. They don't need wine. They don't need food. They don't need flowers. I understand why we might do that. Nothing wrong with it. It does complicate grief. Think about, what are we saying with flowers? Right here, take this dead plant. It's dying. It looks pretty, but it's actually dying. Right? And now you have one more thing to take care of. You have one more thing to kill off. Wow, I didn't realize I was sending this kind of message. But also, it's not beautiful. I just don't believe in beautifying death. I believe in being honest and working through the ugliness, the pain, the horror, the darkness to get to the other side of beauty. Nothing wrong with flowers, but I don't think that's what your friend needs. And food, although it's beautiful to anticipate their needs, to coordinate the process, it's a lot more meaningful when you have meals for the next 2-3 weeks coordinated than when you have 50 fruitcakes all at once, or you have a ton of food, junk food, and you end up eating your emotions. I know I experienced this. When my dad died, I was going to write a book called Eating My Way Through Grief, because I felt like that's all I did was just eat. We have to eat, but right? Can we anticipate our friends' needs in a coordinated, thoughtful way? And can we just show up without the fruitcake, without the wine, without the flowers? Anticipate their needs, but show up and know that your presence, presence, the other kind of presence, is enough. You are enough. Just your being there sends a message, the ultimate message, that you are not alone. You have lost something profound. I cannot replace that. I cannot take your darkness away. I cannot fill the void, but I can hold space for you to do the work. And one of the things that I can do is hold this space by reminding you in 1,000 different ways, you are supported, you are not alone, you are loved. Now, work through your grief. And that's what we can do as friends. If you want more on this, if you want to offer your friend something that I think is far more meaningful than fruitcake or flowers, look at Carry the Fire. It's a program that Ariella and I did, 28-day do-it-yourself grief retreat. We offer it at mysoulcenter.org. And I created it for this reason, because what do you show up to hand? If you're going to hand your friend something, give them a program, an opportunity. It doesn't have to be just that. All kinds of books, whatever. Give them something that will provide, when they're ready, the opportunity to hold the space. That's what the Carry Your Fire do-it-yourself grief retreat does. Spiritual, meaningful, universal space to allow your friend to work through grief. So you can learn more at mysoulcenter.org. Until the next time, we're going to keep talking about Carry the Fire. Shalom, salam, namaste, and peace.